Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man walah. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a great welcome. It's a great honor to be welcomed so warmly, of course, by my good friend Dr. Osman and by all of you. And a great honor, of course, to be able to speak about the glorious Qur'an and to share some insights into one of the most beloved surahs of the Qur'an, one which many of us recite frequently. I was reading one of my favorite mufassirs other than Tahir bin ʿＡshūr, who is Al-Imām Al-Alusi. He notes in his commentary on this surah that he said, since I have been able, since the age of tamyiz, so when I was first able to think or to understand anything, I've recited Sūrat Al-Mulk every single night for the entirety of my life. And he says, I pray that I continue to do so until I meet my Lord. So reciting this surah is something that we have a deep cultural attachment to. And understanding it and pondering on it is something that we do when we have the opportunity as well. And sometimes we look to the experts and we look to the scholars and the books of Tafsīr. And would it sound strange if I said that maybe Tafsīr is overrated? I can say that because I do enough to show my love for Tafsīr that I can then say, but Tafsīr isn't everything. Probing into the deep meanings and the Arabic structures will get us somewhere, will help us with something, but help us with what? Just like reciting itself has a purpose. It leads to something. We read the Qur'an in order to hear the Qur'an, in order to listen to what Allah is telling us. And we listen to what Allah is telling us so that we can obey and follow what He's telling us. And we do those things so that we can attain success in this life and the hereafter. This is the chain of literacy as I like to think about it. One thing leads to the other. And if at any point we are finding that our reading is not leading to that success, if reading is not leading to following and obeying Allah's commands, then something is broken. Maybe the bit that's missing is the bit in the middle, which is understanding. And so we can seek whatever we can to understand. Is this a book of tafsir? Or is it basically a translation? Is it just that I need to be exposed to the essential meanings in a language that I understand? So this is something that we should take as not only desirable, not only as the cherry on top, but as something that is urgent and that we all deserve it. And if there's anything preventing us from that, then this is clearly from the shaitan that wants us not to know what's in this book. And maybe to keep us busy with some things and to forget other things. So tafsir is great, but tafsir is also not everything. And I, inshallah, am hoping to go through all of 30 ayahs of Sūrat Al-Mulk today. And I would like to finish the slides and to finish the presentation, but also I want to say finishing is overrated. Finishing is overrated. It's okay to take things slowly. It's okay and in fact desirable and good and honorable and rewardable to slow down, to figure things out, to ponder on things. And this is of course what we call tadabbur, the Arabic word that we use most of the time for thinking about the Qur'an, reflecting on the Qur'an, is tadabbur. But sometimes when we give something a fancy name, it also becomes a bit intimidating. How am I going to do tadabbur? What courses do I need to attend for tadabbur? Inshallah, there can be courses. We should benefit. We should learn from the scholars and the experts. But in the first place, it is just about bringing yourself to the Qur'an, listening, and wanting to know what Allah is saying to you, what He's saying to me. And we can all do this. And if we want to be clear about what is meant here, what is this referring to, then we ask the scholars. We clarify things. But in the first place, it's about being serious, about being ready to slow down, to repeat, and then also to go deeper when we have the chance. So maybe today we will have something more like a surface level. But I'm going to also show you some things that go beneath the surface, just so we get a taste of that. And this will show you the depths and the beauties that are in this field of tafsir. And in works of tafsir like Tahir bin ʿＡshūr, if you are only an English speaker and you can't read Arabic, then until now you could not know about those depths in Tahir bin ʿAshūr's tafsir. And through our project, you will also not get all the depths that are in an Arabic tafsir, which is massive like this in many volumes. But the core things is what we're going to share, the core meanings, a translation that follows the lead of his tafsir. And we were doing a lecture yesterday, just nearby in the university, which was called What if Ibn ʿAshūr translated the Qur'an? So the translation that you're going to be seeing here is based on this proposition. We're imagining that Ibn ʿAshūr himself set out to do an English translation. What would that look like? I claim that what you're going to see, that's what it would look like. That's what it would look like. But also you're going to see some features here, which I hope give you some ideas about how you can keep benefiting from the various translations and tafsirs and commentaries and lectures and lessons and websites and apps that are available. Because the more and more that they are producing these resources, the less and less of an excuse that we have to be failing to use them, to be claiming that the Qur'an is out of reach, when in fact it is in your hands. So, Surat Al-Mulk of course begins with تبارك الذي بيده الملك وهو على كل شيء قدير. It would be beautiful perhaps if we spend some time to recite these ayat in Arabic. And of course, I encourage to recite in Arabic. And yes, I encourage you to do that even if you are not someone who understands Arabic. Because we are connecting with the words of revelation. And in fact, what I would recommend is that you have a process of going back and forward between the Arabic and the translation and commentary and the process of reflection, and you come back. And I like that when we recite this, maybe the first time we recite it, we didn't have any or much understanding of the meanings, but then we go and learn something, and then after that come and recite it again. And this time allow your recitation to have within it your thoughts and your feelings that you experienced as you were learning. And now your second reading will not be like your first reading. And you will imprint some of that understanding onto the pages of the Mus'haf that you are reciting from. So that's the idea of repeating, coming back, right? And we'll see exactly this theme in another context here in the surah. So I'm going to focus on the meanings which can be presented in translation. We can, of course, start to probe into each word in Arabic and the meanings it contains, and then we can talk about how insufficient this translation is. As the translator, I will be the first one to admit and declare how insufficient this translation is. My mentor, Professor Abdul Halim, who's famous for his Qur'an translation, he tells a story that someone came to him and said, I like your translation, but I like the Arabic better. He said, well, I wasn't claiming to be as good as the author, right? So we have to have a realistic expectation when it comes to translation. How can I capture all the depth of tabaraka and how tabaraka relates to baraka and mubarak and all these words which are, these gems in the Qur'an, and how they connect to meanings of growth and plenty and goodness and being good to people and being deserving of praise. We can only try to choose a few words in English that get us somewhere in the department and in the right direction. Supremely blessed is he who holds all sovereignty and who is capable of all things. He who created death and life to make it known which of you are better in action, and he is the mighty, the forgiving. So there's something that you'll notice from the beginning that we've done here, and that's that there is a phrase here in green. Now the reason that there's a phrase here in green is there are many places, if you do read books of tafsir, where the scholar will tell you this particular phrase can be understood in more than one way. And even the grammar of it can be interpreted in more than one way. And therefore, in the translation, it could be translated more than one way. And that's why, in working on this project, we want to preserve this diversity, this multiplicity, these layers of meanings, because I believe, and this is what Ibn ʿAshūr also teaches, that when Allah Azza wa Jal words things in a way that can be understood in multiple ways, He wants us to understand it in multiple ways. Obviously, there are some meanings which are stronger than others, more obvious than others. There might be some misinterpretations as well, which we put aside. But as far as the valid readings of an ayah are concerned, we should actually see the ayah as carrying all this depth and all these layers of meaning. So here I can show you another translation which expresses the other meaning. Supremely blessed is he by whose hand the kingdom exists. Now the question here isn't really about the translation of the word hand. Obviously, people sometimes get caught up in these questions and make it a point of debate. Instead of focusing on what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describing to us, what is it that He wants us to understand? He wants us to understand His perfect power and control and sovereignty and authority. And He's expressed this by saying that all of the kingdom is in His hand, or all of the kingdom is by His hand. So there's a difference here in the meaning of the ba in biyadihi al-mulk. Does it mean that it's in His hand? So the translation then here is a bit more idiomatic. Who holds all sovereignty? Or is it a description about how everything that exists came about by His action, by whose hand the kingdom exists? These are not clashing meanings, they are complementary meanings, because the fact that Allah created everything is exactly why He has the full dominion, control, authority, and sovereignty, and who is capable of all things. So these are what I call the forks in translation, where you could go this way or you could go that way, and then you come back to the main path, and who is capable of all things. وَهُوَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. But there's something else that we've done in this translation, which is to say, can we introduce some clarifying phrases which help us to understand this better? That in a way we can expand on it, we can unfold this translation, and then maybe come back to this level again. As we say, read, expand, and repeat. And you come back and understand this better. Let's have a look at what this might look like. Supremely blessed and praiseworthy is He. So now we've recovered something that we lost in the first translation of Tabaraka. We put it here in the second layer. Supremely blessed and praiseworthy is He who holds all true sovereignty, and who, unlike the false deities, is capable of every potential and has power over all things. He who showed this power when He created death and life, including in you humans, to make it known which of you are better and worse in action in this life. And when you return to Him after death, He is the mighty in retribution, the forgiving towards sincere servants. So, if we were doing a full dars of tafsir, and we were studying Ibn ʿāshūr's text, you would know exactly how he went about explaining all these various points. But here I've summarized for you many things that he's discussed. First of all, to understand who is being spoken to by this surah. Of course, everybody. But the first addressees of this surah were the mushrikun of Mecca, the people who were worshipping idols. And they're being told, you even know when you're doing this, you know that in fact, they are not the ones who hold the sovereignty. They are not the creators of the heavens and the earth. And some ayat of the Qur'an show us that they knew this. They admitted this when push came to shove. Yes, that's Allah who did that. So he is saying that to them, therefore you should consider Him to be transcendent and the one worthy of worship. And you should have no regard whatsoever for these things which have no power even over themselves, let alone on anything else. And then he is telling us about the nature of life. He created death and life. When we ponder on the Qur'an, there are many things that are very observable even in a translation. As long as the translator didn't choose to swap around the words, you see the order here. He created death and life. And he didn't say life and death. خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ. In this order, it is in the ayah. So it raises questions. The question is, of course, why death before life? And there could be lots of different answers. I could tell you, if you want, what Ibn ʿāshūr says about this. But the first important thing is that you have the question. You have the curiosity. That's not going to send you off into a spiral of doubt and problem. It's going to make you keen to come back to the Qur'an. Maybe just as you continue reading in this surah, some answer will come to you. Maybe as you recite it again and again, and you're sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will open up the door of understanding. Maybe you will be reading somewhere else in the Qur'an, and you will come back to that question that you had. It helps, of course, if you write down your questions, give them some shape, give them some body, and leave a space where the answer is going to go later on. You know, I don't know if you've got a mushaf where you've got lots of space on the side for your questions, or maybe you don't feel that this is okay. We have tools. You have pads of paper. We have a website called QuranReflect.com. We have on Quran.com also a place where you can insert annotations that you keep private for yourself, but it allows you to come back to those things and to see, here I had a question. Later on, in some lesson or some lecture, or maybe through a life lesson, something that happens to you, you're like, now I get it. Now I get why Allah said this in this place and in this way. So let's not always look for spoon feeding. Let's not always look for, let me ask the expert, let me ask the tafsir doctor. He'll know the answer to this question. You know what? I might know an answer to the question, but who of us can say, this is definitely the reason and the only reason why Allah said it in this way? Here, for example, Ibn ʿＡshūr says that it is death which is more the sign of this power that Allah is emphasizing. Because we all enjoy life, but we would all resist death if we could. He created death and life, and this is the thing that they have to be convinced of, to recognize that you are going to die and that these things are going to happen. You will be judged. How you live this life, you will be asked about how you lived it. And then, وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْغَفُورُ. Of course, these are two names of Allah. When we come across these names, we may just read them. Yes, I know these are names of Allah, these are names of Allah. I've seen them in many ayahs. But you can also stop and say, why these two names in this ayah? How does that relate to what else is being said in the ayah? So this is doors of reflection, the types of questions that can come to you. He is capable of all things. He created death and life. And He is Al-Aziz Al-Ghafur. Ibn ʿAshūr says here, Aziz is referring to what He will do to those who have done wrong and have been stubborn and turned away from the worship of Allah and done evil upon the earth. And Al-Ghafur, this is pointing to what He will do for those who come back to Him. Because the message in the surah again and again is, you can come back to Him and you are being invited to be in His protection, because you have no protection other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This surah has a number of descriptions which come from hadith. It is Al-Munjiyah. It is also Al-Mujadilah. I was just learning about a masjid here. So it is also the one that argues on behalf of the one who recites it and the one who is connected with it. It protects from the punishment in the grave. How is it giving this protection? I always think there's no coincidence. It's not that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way randomly assigns protective qualities to certain things. But when you ponder on them, you see what is protecting about it. How it protects you as you study it and you ponder it and become connected to it. And then of course, the effects which are beyond our physical understanding also happen. It's protecting you because it's showing you how to be in Allah's protection in this life. How to be one of His awliya and to be in His patronage and care. So it goes on to mention other attributes and things that He has created. He has created 7 heavens in perfect harmony. You will find no discrepancy in what the Compassionate One creates. Ar-Rahman is one of these words that it's very hard to find a translation that will carry the power of the name Ar-Rahman. But here, this is what we're working with. You will find no discrepancy in what the Compassionate One creates. So look again. Can you spot any cracks? Yes, keep looking over and over. Your sight will come back to you, defeated and worn out. So now you've seen a green, you understand that I'm going to show you an alternative translation of this part. He who created 7 heavens in a state of correspondence. So either it means that these sab'a samawat are in an order that they are not clashing with each other, or it means that they are similar to each other. Now here, as it happens, Imam Ibn ʿＡshūr has a very unusual theory in his tafsir. He believes that the sab'a samawat is referring to the 7 planets of the solar system. So other than Earth, there are 7 planets. Yes, he who created 7 heavens, i.e. planets, in perfect order and harmony in their various orbits, or in a state of correspondence with similar shapes and motions. So I'm able to use the second layer to clarify. What do you mean correspondence? This is a bit of a fancy word, but this is so that the word tibaqan can be translated directly. So we may or may not agree or accept with Ibn ʿAshūr's theory here. Certainly we can hear it out and consider it. But it shows you also that the field of tafsir is one where there should always be inquiry. There should always be those who are specialized in this field can present new meanings for consideration. And it shows you that the meanings of the Qur'an are not limited to what has been said in the past. And that is the secret behind why we have called our center the Ibn ʿAshūr Center for Quranic Studies, because he shows us how we properly study our tradition and respect it, but how we also are ready to consider whether there are new meanings and new theories that can be presented in understanding Allah's words in the best way. For you will find no discrepancy in what the Compassionate One creates. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created things in this state of harmony out of His mercy. And everything that the Rahman creates, of course, is in harmony, is in order, whether we have grasped that or not. So here we are told, look, and the unbelievers are told, look for your own selves. What's very beautiful and generally lost in translation is the singular versus the plural. مَا تَرَى فِي خَلْقِ الرَّحْمَنِ مِن تَفَاوُتٍ. For you will find no discrepancy. Maybe I will add something here, but in the footnote we have clarified, the you here is a singular to tell every single person. As an individual, go ahead and look, study, consider, don't settle for your first impression either. And certainly don't just listen to what other people are saying. Don't follow the crowd. Don't be a sucker for mob rule and mob thinking. Instead, you look. When you ponder the beauty of this creation, you will see and you will confirm through this looking over and over that there is no crack, there is no gap in the creation. Rather, the cracking will happen in the end of time. We have a surah called Al-Infitar. Al-Infitar is related here to futur. You will not see any futur because there will come a time when the skies will crack. And that will show that the order which Allah has set in His creation is now collapsing because it is opening the way for the new creation. It is opening the way for the next phase of existence. And we have adorned the nearest heaven with great lamps and made them missiles against the devils. Another way to understand the grammar here would be, and filled it with missiles against the devils. If you're interested in Arabic grammar, the difference is, جعلناها, the dhamir here, the pronoun, does it go back to the lamps, the masabih, or does it go back to as-sama' ad-dunya? So that would affect the translation. And if you're someone who uses different translations, you can go and check. Maybe some of them have gone with one view, some of them have gone with the other view. Or maybe they all just went in the same direction. So in this project, we're trying to show, yeah, there are more than one way of understanding the same words. And filled it with missiles against the devils. And we have prepared for them the torment of the blaze. And all who disbelieve in their Lord will have the torment of hell, and what a wretched destination it is. As they are thrown into it, they hear a choking sound from it as it boils up, almost bursting with fury. Every time a group is thrown in, its keepers ask them, did a warner not come to you? So as-sama' ad-dunya, the nearest heaven, this may refer to, as we understand it, the observable space and where we see the planets. It can also refer to the sky above us, within the earth's atmosphere. Because certainly in this ayah, Allah does not say that He placed the lamps inside the heaven. He says He beautified the lowest heaven with lamps. So Even our sky is beautified by the lamps from the distant skies and outer space. And we have adorned the nearest heaven and the view from earth with great bodies and stars like lamps, and made some of them, so he explains this to be meteorites, into missiles defending divine secrets against the devils. This points to the greatness of the Qur'an, the preservation of the Qur'an. There is a whole war happening up there that we can kind of observe an effect of it, an aspect of it, part of its reality, but it has, if you want, a metaphysical or supernatural or a level of reality that's beyond our instruments to comprehend. We cannot measure the devils. We don't know how the shayateen or the jinn, how did they climb up into the sky? How did they used to do that? How do these meteorites disrupt their paths and prevent them from interfering with what Allah Azza wa Jal is preserving? But the ayat are pointing to the significance of the Qur'an. And all who disbelieve in their Lord and associate partners with Him will have the torment of hell, and what a wretched destination it is. And then the other ayah which is expanded here, every time a doomed group is thrown in from yet another nation, its angelic keepers ask them reproachfully, "Did a warner not come to you?" So these are some very small points of clarification. They help to just join the points together for there to be a flow, because it's important that we learn to read the Qur'an in this way, and even that we learn to read the Arabic Qur'an in this way. The most expert readers of the Qur'an, the scholars of the Qur'an, they see how things are interconnected. But when you haven't been initiated into that or haven't been trained in that, sometimes you see there's one ayah, then another ayah, then another ayah, and you feel that they are disjointed. And sometimes even we talk about them in disjointed ways. But we need to reclaim the idea of reading the flow of a discourse, especially within a surah, a finite, bounded surah like Sūrat Al-Mulk is only 30 ayahs. How do its ideas flow and connect to each other? So those people who are asked this question by the angels, they reply, "Yes, indeed, a warner did come to us. But we denied and said, God has not sent down a single thing. You are in nothing but great misguidance." Now what's going on here in the green? If you look carefully, you can see that we have an end of the quote, God has not sent down a single thing, end quote. And then we have a new quote, which is, you are in nothing but great misguidance. So that would imply that it's a new speaker here. So the view that Ibn ʿＡshūr prefers is that the speaker of in antum illa fi dhalalin kabir, you are nothing but great misguidance, this is the angel speaking back to them again and telling them that you are now suffering the consequence of your misguidance. And you are misguided here as well on the Day of Judgment. You will not find your way across the Surat. You will not find your way into Jannah. You are in dalal, you are lost. But then the other way of seeing this is it's part of the same quote. So maybe as you've read Sūrat Al-Mulk, you've always seen it one way or the other way. But now you can understand that both of them can be understood from the ayah. So we denied and said, God has not sent down a single thing. You are in a major state of error, that is all. In antum illa fi dhalalin kabir. So that's what they had said to the messengers. The people go on to say, if we had only listened or used our reason, we would not have ended up among the denizens of the blaze. So let's expand that a little bit to start to see. They reply, yes, indeed, a warner did come to each group among us, but we denied them and said, God has not sent down a single thing. The angels rebuke them. You are now to suffer in nothing but the result of your great misguidance. Or, we denied them and said to them, God has not sent down a single thing. You and your followers are in a major state of error, that is all. So, naturally, if this is printed in a book, we are going to struggle to make this clear to you. You're going to struggle to navigate it. We're looking for the solutions to this. But the good thing is nowadays, we don't have to read the Qur'an in book form. We can still do that, but we can also appreciate digital formats, websites like Qur'an.com, where inshallah this will appear once we manage to follow through the project, with your du'as and your support. And then you'll be able to click and navigate and come back and forward and expand and contract. And we want to build this kind of tactile and interactive relationship with the Qur'an, where you get something out of saying, tell me more, tell me more. Because sometimes if we tell you everything all in one go, it becomes too much and you become bored. And this is human nature. I know, because I have also sat on that side of the hall. It can be difficult to hear everything all at once. But what we want to do through this translation and other projects that we're working on at Quran.com is to keep sparking curiosity, keep allowing you to come up with what you are interested in and find the answer to that, and then also slip in for you the things that we think that you need to know and the things that you need to experience. I said finishing is overrated because we have a lot of discussion around finishing the Quran in such and such time, doing a khatmah of recitation or doing a khatam of memorization. Where is our khatam of understanding? Where is our khatam of pondering? How do we start to actualize these concepts? So we're working towards having a system where for any part of the Quran you can, in a way, tick off the achievements. I've read this now in Arabic. I've read this in translation. I've now read the tafsir questions related to it. I've now understood what the scholars said about it. I've thought about its implications and connection with my life. I have acted in some way on these ayahs. Once I'm able to tick that off, I have a different relationship with the Quran. This became something that I did, and not just something that I heard or understood or learned, but something that became embodied as the Prophet ﷺ himself was, the walking Quran. How is it that we start to walk the Quran as well as reading and talking Quran? So, the people go on to say, if we had only listened and followed the messenger, or used our reason to appreciate the signs, we would not have ended up among the denizens of the blaze. Now you might say, why are you using such a hard word for ashab, denizens of the blaze? I'm not afraid necessarily to give you a word that you have to look up. Because again, this goes back to the principle. I don't want the translation to be very difficult and obscure and impossible to appreciate. But I don't think it's the end of the world if you have to click on something and say, what's the meaning of this word? If we're willing to learn the Arabic words, why can we not learn our own language that we're already supposed to know? The reason for this word choice, by the way, is because Allah says Ashabul Jannah and Ashabul Nar, and it's the same word. And I think that if we said something like companions, it just doesn't sound right in English. Companions of the garden, because it's like friends of the garden. Ashab means that you own something, or it could be almost the opposite of that. You're on the flip side of that hell owns you, right? So ashab, I've used denizens and citizens. So the citizens of the garden, because this is a very lofty concept of being people who live here and don't have to worry about, having to leave. They don't just have residency visa, right? But they have citizenship. So this is, it's a new idea in translation. So that's not from Ibn ʿＡshūr. So I'll admit that there are things that, of course, we're bringing to the translation that's attempting to enhance translations that already exist. Like if you read the translation and it says, the people of the garden, or the citizen, and they will say probably the companions of the garden, and that means something to you, that's perfectly fine. But I'm suggesting that we, work harder on some concepts in English that will map, maybe even better, to the concepts in the Arabic. And so they admit their fault, which earned the punishment. So damned be the denizens of the blaze from every species and nation. So I'll mention a couple of things in this slide before moving on. Number one, Ibn ʿAshūr points out the importance then of hearing and thinking. And I want to relate that to what we've started with and what we've reaffirmed about our relationship with the Qur'an. لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ أَوْ نَعْقِلُ. So sometimes what's needed is to listen, and sometimes what's needed is to reason and to think. And generally, our deen is built on the proper relationship between these things. So we hear the Qur'an. Hearing it is not enough. If you say to your children, listen to me, you give them instructions, say, listen. It's not enough for them just to say, yeah, I heard, and I'm going to do the opposite. Who says that in the Qur'an? سَمِعْنَا وَعَصَيْنَا. not the believers, right? This is the attitude of the unbelievers, particularly the Israelites are quoted to say, سَمِعْنَا وَعَصَيْنَا. Either they said that with their tongues, or they said it certainly through their actions. Their mouths said سَمِعْنَا, and their actions said عَصَيْنَا. Right? We have heard, but we have disobeyed. The believers are the ones who say سَمِعْنَا وَأَطَعْنَا. We have heard and we have obeyed. Whereas a lot of our actions or our way of behavior, our lisan al-hal is saying سَمِعْنَا وَسَمِعْنَا. We heard and we heard some more. We listened in the car and we listened in the home and we heard the Qur'an. But how do we get to and we obeyed? We have to actually pay attention to what Allah is saying, to listen properly and use our minds to connect it to our realities. So, Sam' and Aql are here together. The other thing I'm going to tell you is about AI. You know AI, Azhari intelligence. No, artificial intelligence, right? Artificial intelligence is giving us tools to work on things like this. And we've got to be very careful. We've got to be careful about the mistakes that come up through that, the biases that are embedded in that. But I'll tell you a secret, we have to be careful about human mistakes and we have to be careful about human biases as well. So we always have this concern. So here, we were using an AI tool to summarize Ibn ʿＡshūr's perspective. That's not what you see here, by the way. This is the Azhari intelligence, right? The artificial intelligence gave a nice summary of Ibn ʿAshūr's perspective, but it made a mistake. But it was a really beautiful mistake. It sort of misunderstood that Ibn ʿAshūr is saying either those people had said this to the messenger, in antum illa fi dalalin kabir, or it's the angels who are saying it to them. The machine slightly misread this as being that both are true. And by the way, Ibn ʿAshūr in his methodology is very okay with that in general, but he didn't say it here in this ayah. But in general, he's very okay with both and. So the AI machine, it was Gemini as it happens, it said, in the ultimate irony, the very words that they had used to mock the messengers were turned against them by the angels on the Day of Judgment. In antum illa fi dalalin kabir. And I was like, Ya salam. This AI has done a tadabbur. Really? And a very nice one. And if someone had said that to me, what do you think of this? I would have said, that's a really great reflection. Where did you read that? Is that Imam al-Razi who said that? Was it Imam al-Biqa'i who said that? I would expect this to come from a great mind. So maybe we have some opportunities, which, leave that in the hands of those who can best, couple the technologies with the tradition. And inshallah, we can use these things effectively. But we have to be careful when we are alone and people going to these things and asking it religious questions and asking it fatwas. This is, of course, a big door of fitna. In contrast, those who fear their Lord, even without seeing Him, are guaranteed forgiveness for their past and their slips, and a grand reward for their faith and deeds. So here, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala generally balances the tarheeb with targheeb and vice versa. When He's giving the bad news of the punishment, He will also give the good news of the reward. And that is to say to you, it doesn't have to end up like this. You don't have to be in the sa'ir and with ashab al-sa'ir, but there is a way out, a way forward. Another future is possible for the Arabs. They can follow this messenger. They can attain to success in this life, success in the hereafter. So the next ayah is an example of where sometimes we can struggle to understand where an ayah is fitting in. And the answer to that may come from what's called asbab al-nuzul. So we have literature, you can find this inside tafsirs, it will tell you the thing that prompted this revelation. Sometimes they say the causes of revelation, reasons of revelation, asbab al-nuzul. So here, for example, there are reports which tell us that some of these mushrikun and some of the Ahl Kitab as well would say, just keep your voices down. Everything that we're saying is getting reported in the Qur'an. But if we keep our voices down, maybe the God of Muhammad will not hear us. Right? Sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So this kind of absurd idea, right? This is a lack of aql as well. And even in that is an admission that in fact, the God of Muhammad is listening and that the angels are recording and that the Qur'an is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's showing them that you kind of know this, don't you? But you're refusing to admit it out loud. You're refusing to do what follows from that. So that's Asbab al-Nuzul. For me, I want to take that out of the footnotes and place it somewhere else. I want it to be somewhere where you see it almost before you look at the main text. Or at least you know that its place is somehow prior, it's a context, it's a background. Now you may keep your statements secret or say them out loud. He well knows what lies within the chests. Should he not know those he created? And he is the subtle, the aware. He it is who placed the earth at your disposal, so walk through its junctures and eat from what he provides, and unto him is the resurrection. So you're waiting now, inshallah. You become accustomed now. You see green, you're like, but what's the blue? This is a very famous, nice one, grammatically. أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ. So man khalaqa, is it the maf'ul bihi? Is it the object? Should he not know those he created, man khalaqa? Or is it man khalaqa is the fa'il? أَلَا يَعْلَمُ مَنْ خَلَقَ. Should the one who created, should he who created not know? Okay, and these are very, very complementary meanings. And in a way, the fact that Allah says it in that way may be because we're supposed to look at it from both these perspectives together. Allah created, so He knows, and He knows those whom He created. And this opens up, more pondering that we can do. So let's expand it. Now you unbelievers may keep your statements against the Prophet ﷺ secret, or say them out loud. Either way, he well knows what lies within the chests of all people. Should he not know the secrets of those he created? Should he who created people not know their secrets? And beyond that, he is the subtle, the aware. So Al-Latif Al-Khabir, I will say something very brief here, that Ibn ʿＡshūr says Al-Latif has a number of meanings in the Arabic language and in the Qur'an and as a name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It can mean being gentle and being kind. But in the context where it's mentioned with Al-Khabir, it's talking about the lutf of his knowledge. So he knows all subtleties that may be hidden to most people. He can access them, right? Al-Latif, Al-Khabir. And he can also achieve his purposes through subtle means in ways that are not so obvious, that we might never expect. He is the subtle, the aware. He it is who placed the earth at your disposal like a tamed beast. Where did this come from? It came from the fact that Allah used certain words here which point to an imagery. I'll explain that in a second. So continue to walk gratefully through its junctures to explore its expanses and eat from what He provides you from it. And unto Him is the resurrection from your earthly graves. So there's something that I got when reading this tafsir that I hadn't realized before. Maybe I should read more, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls the earth here ذَلُولًا. جَعَلَ الْأَرْضَ ذَلُولًا. Now, can anyone remember another place in the Qur'an where the word ذَلُول appears? You can shout out, it's okay. So it's especially in Surat. لا ذلول تثير الأرض, right? So specifically the word ذلول comes in Surat Al-Baqarah, the chapter of the cow, in the story of the cow. So among the specifications which are then given to those Israelites because they asked too many questions, the wrong kind of questions. We want to praise the good questions, we want to dispraise the bad kind of questions. So they showed and embodied what it means to ask bad questions that are out of their place and in the wrong manner. So they ended up being told it should not be dhalul, it shouldn't be one that has been broken in and tamed for work on a farm. So Allah is saying here, He made the earth dhalul. So it's like He's connecting that meaning with an animal. Say it could be a horse or a bull or a mule or whatever. He has made it at your disposal like an animal. Now that's not that alone. He says, فَامْشُوا فِي مَنَاكِبِهَا. You look in the tafsirs and it will say, manakib means here, it's expanses, or it's mountain paths, or it's valleys. And these are all correct interpretations. But what does manakib basically mean in Arabic? Can anyone help me out here? No, you're pointing here. You're pointing here. No, don't say corners. Say what you mean. Shoulders. It means shoulders, right? It means shoulders. So we only have mankiban, 2 of them, right? But it's as if you translate it literally, He has made it a tame beast for you, so walk among its shoulders. Now, I'm not brave enough to translate it that way on the first level, right? But I looked for a word that can be somewhat adjacent to the word shoulders and then explain it in the footnote, that literally it means shoulders. So it's like the earth is like an animal, and then when you see these mountains, it's like the shoulders or part of the animal. And you're supposed to walk through the earth as if you are riding on it. And you pointed to another ayah, which actually Ibn ʿＡshūr quotes here, فَمِنْهَا رَكُوبُهُمْ وَمِنْهَا يَأْكُلُونَ. In Surah Yasin, Allah has given you the animals, and they are there for you to ride. They are there for you to eat from as well. So the earth itself is like this animal. You ride upon it and you eat from it. So look at the beauty that's embedded. And these are things that are, as we say, lost in translation. But we can recover it somewhere. We can recover it in the second layer or the third layer because it would be hard to process in the first layer. So continue to walk gratefully through its junctures to explore its expanses and eat from what He provides you from it. And unto Him is the resurrection. Do you feel safe from the one in heaven, causing the earth's upheaval around you so you find it all in convulsion? Or perhaps you feel safe from the one in heaven, unleashing a torrent of stones upon you. Then you will know the reality of my warning. The people who went before them certainly denied, and how terrible was my rebuke. So when people come to the Qur'an, sometimes looking for evidences for various positions, there might be fiqhi positions, juristic, legal disputes or disagreements between the scholars. Then they come to the Qur'an and they find the things that confirm one view or the other. The same thing happens in debates over aqeedah or creed or the understanding of belief, where people will say, this ayah proves my point or this ayah proves my point. And it may be that the two groups are using the same ayah to prove their point. So here, for example, this would be a proof of those who say we should describe Allah as being fi sama. And there's a famous hadith and lots of discussion around these things. I definitely don't want to get into the intricacies of those debates. Because when we are studying the Qur'an, the first thing we should be saying is, what is Allah telling me here? He has not started this ayah in a way that's telling you, think about what it means for Allah to be fi sama. But He has taken that as a description that you will understand something from it immediately and directly. At the same time, in the Arabic language, there are other possibilities. Is this intended as a singular, referring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself? Is that singular perhaps referring to an angel like Jibreel alayhi salam as man fi sama? This is another opinion in Tafsir, and Ibn ʿAshūr mentions it. Or is man fi sama even intended as a plural? In Arabic language, this is possible as well. That would be then translated as those in heaven, right? So in that case, it could be said this ayah is not an absolute proof of that position of saying Allah is fis sama, or that we should use this expression for Him, or that the Qur'an uses it. But according to one of the interpretations, certainly it is. That is fis sama. But then how do we understand that? What do we take from that? That's where the next layer will help us to clarify. So he says, do you feel safe from the one who holds all power in heaven, causing the earth's upheaval around you so you find it all in convulsion? Because whoever is saying that Allah is fis sama does not, of course, intend a physical location or limitation. Because once you go down this road, you start to realize that the more you say about it, the more that you're falling into a problem. The more you just stayed with what Allah said, you are always in a safe place. because you're not saying anything from yourself. So at the very least, this ayah is telling us that Allah can unleash whatever He wants from the heavens. His power is there. He is in full control there. And He is in full control on the earth. And He can punish you from the earth. He can punish you from the sky. And He has angels who are appointed to that, if you read the man fis sama with the plural meaning. Do you feel safe from those angels appointed for punishment in heaven, causing the earth's upheaval around you so you find it all in convulsion? Or perhaps you feel safe from the one in heaven or those in heaven unleashing a torrent of stones or a violent whirlwind upon you. Then you will know the reality of my warning. So now the ayah actually switches to the third person. Instead of amintum, it now says in the third person, min qablihim. So then this expanded translation helps us to see how that works, how the switch works. Believers, would such people feel safe even though the people who went before them certainly denied their messenger similarly, and they know how terrible was my rebuke each time? Have they not looked at the birds above them, with wings extended and contracting? None holds them up but the compassionate one, for He is cognizant of all things. Yes, I know I can choose an easier word than cognizant, but it's okay. It's okay to look something up. It's all right. And also I'm here to explain. Here, Ibn ʿＡshūr says, Basir doesn't mean seeing in the normal sense. It means having full awareness, being fully aware of all things. Now, who can you claim to make up your army that aids you, other than the compassionate one? The disbelievers are nothing but a state of delusion. Or who can you claim will provide for you, if He should hold back His provision? Yet they persist in arrogance and aversion. So this expression, who can you claim, can be like a purely hypothetical thing. Who would ever be this person for you who defends you if you are in the opposite army against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who could you claim is going to give you rizq if Allah withholds His rizq from you? There is no one. Or we can see the expression as pointing to their idols, because they were worshipping idols. So who are these? Who are these that make up your army? Who are these that will provide for you? Have they not looked at the birds above them with wings extended to soar and contracting to push higher? I'm really happy with this bit, by the way, because صَافَّاتٍ, this is a ismu fa'il, which points to the almost the constant nature of their extending their wings. And yaqbidna is a fi'l, mudari', it's an imperfect verb, which indicates that it's the occasional thing. It's the interruption of the saffat, is yaqbidna, saffat, yaqbidna, right? So I used with wings extended to soar and contracting to push higher. You know, many times the translator will spend a long time on something and think hard about it. Then you will never know until we do a talk, then we can tell you, I worked hard on this one. They should see that none holds them up but the compassionate one, for He is cognizant of all things. Now, who can you idolaters claim to make up your army that aids you when called? Who can do that other than the compassionate one when you take Him as your ally? So this is what Ibn ʿAshūr says the point is here about these birds. That look how they are in the mercy of Allah, how He provides for them, how He saves them from destruction, right? Tonight I'll be flying again in a plane. Every time I go, I'm just like, how does this plane stay in the sky? I know there's physics, but physics is not a replacement for, it's the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because who created the physics? Who created the laws? Yeah? You know who created? Allah, yes? So Allah created everything. So Allah also created those birds, and He created their bodies, and He created their feathers, and He created the hollowness in their feathers. And He has created the aerodynamics and the air itself and how it works for us. All these things are in the creation of Allah, and if He wished to change any part of that at any time, He could. So we are always held up in the mercy of Allah and could drop at any time if he so wished. So the unbelievers are being told, are you sitting there all safe and enjoying the ni'mah of Allah and not recognizing the mun'im, the one who is giving you these things, the one who is keeping you safe? You want to be safe? Then come into the patronage and the allyship of Ar-Rahman. Who can do that other than the compassionate one when you take him as your ally? The disbelievers of all times are nothing but a state of delusion when they feel safe from God and protected by their idols. Or who can you claim will provide for you if he should hold back his provision of rain and nourishment? Yet despite all these signs and proofs, they persist in arrogance and aversion. Here I could insert a bit more, but the footnote certainly explains this last phrase. بَلْ لَجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍّ وَنُفُورٍ. This is like a comment on all the things that have preceded, all the proofs that have been laid out. The question that comes to the mind is, have the unbelievers understood any of this? Have they taken it on board? Have they decided to change? بَلْ لَجُّوا فِي عُتُوٍّ وَنُفُورٍ. Despite all these signs and proofs, they persist in arrogance and aversion. And this ayah as well is like a summary of what has gone before. أَفَمَنْ يَمْشِي مُكِبًّا عَلَى وَجْهِهِ. In a way, I've rearranged some of the phrases in the ayah to make it easier to parse in English. Okay? Which is something that some translators do here and there. My mentor, Professor Abdul Halim, does that plenty. I do it more sparingly. But here I felt it's clearer if I say, so who is better guided? A man who walks hunched over with his face to the ground to find his way on a twisted path with conflicting directions? Or one who walks upright on a clear and straight path? So even without it being spelled out, you can see who is being compared here. The mushrikun with their many gods, their many masters, they don't have any clarity in life. They don't have clarity of purpose. They don't understand where they came from, where they're going, and how to get there. So it's like a person who is trying to make his way, and so he has to look so closely at the ground because it's dark and he's lost his glasses, and the signs themselves, some of them are worn out and they're giving conflicting information. Because there's a nasikh and mansukh, one of them is replacing the other, but they forgot to take away the previous one. And so he is hunched over. He has to hunch over to try to get there. What about someone who's confident? Someone who knows, yep, I know where I'm going. You can tell the difference if someone's doing a purposeful walk. The marketers out there in our streets, when they're giving out flyers, they know not to bother the one who is walking purposely because they've got somewhere to get to. They don't have time to waste with this advert for a club or whatever. But someone who's like this, they are the easy prey because you can see that they don't have a direction. So maybe they'll go to this place, maybe they'll go to this shop. Because where else are they going? Right? So the difference between the unbeliever and the believer is that the believer is one who has a sense of purpose and is proceeding and making his way confidently because he knows who is his Lord. He knows where he came from. He knows where he's trying to get to, and he knows how to get there because the Qur'an gave him this path. So how can you compare these two things? This ayah is like a shining gem within the surah and a description of really the entirety of what our religious experience is like. And then we have the Qul passage, right until the end of the surah. Qul, Qul, Qul. And then some more in the next section as we conclude. Here the Prophet ﷺ is given the task and the honor of directing these points to the unbelievers, even though the whole of the surah, of course, the Prophet ﷺ has recited to them. But it's like they are now hearing him recite to them Qul as well. Have you ever thought about that? How in a way strange it is? He is delivering the message and then he delivers it with the word say. So he's not telling them to say, but he's now letting them know that he is being told to say. And that says something about his status and his position in this statement. Say, it is he who brought you into being and gave you hearing, eyes, and reasoning hearts, af'idah, though you are hardly thankful. Say, it is he who multiplied you on the earth, and to him you will be gathered. They ask, when will this promise come about? If what you say is true, say that knowledge lies solely with God and my role is only to convey clear warnings. So when they see it up close, the faces of those who disbelieved are pained. And it is said, this is the very thing you used to claim would never happen. So here we have a little green part. Here there are a couple of possible meanings. And here the meanings are related to the authentic qira'at and readings of the Qur'an. Because this green one is according to the majority reading of Hafs and Asim. It's also according to the majority of the canonized reciters of the 7 qira'at. But there were some of them who recited also, and this goes back also to the time of the Prophet ﷺ, this recitation, instead of kuntum tadda'un, kuntum bihi tadda'un, it's kuntum bihi tad'un, tad'un. So that can have another translation as well. This is the very thing you used to call for. So in the next layer we can see the clarification of this. Say to them, Prophet, it is He who brought you into being, though you are hardly thankful, if at all. Actually, Ibn ʿＡshūr here says the expression قَلِيلًا مَا تَشْكُرُونَ should be understood to mean you are not grateful at all. You have no gratitude at all. This is a way in the Arabic language of denying that something exists. So I felt like a way of combining that is to use these two layers. Though you are hardly thankful, if at all. So I'm not even admitting and accepting that you have any shukr. But if you do, it's very little. Say, it is He who multiplied you on the earth, and to Him you will be gathered with all generations after death. They ask repeatedly, when will this promise come about, if what you Muslims say is true? That helps you to understand now that was a plural verb. Kuntum sadiqeen. Say that knowledge lies solely with God, and my role is only to convey clear warnings. So when what is promised arrives and they see it up close, the faces of those who disbelieved are pained, and it is said to them by the angels, this is the very thing you used to claim would never happen, or the very thing that you used to call for mockingly. So both of these, of course, are valid meanings. The qira'at then are giving us that multiplicity of meanings. By studying the various readings and what they mean, we can get more dimensions of meaning. And this is something also that you can look forward to on Qur'an.com, where we will have something called the qira'at fact files. It means that inshallah, if you're interested in this dimension, you can click through and see these are the meanings, and that's what it comes from, and that's how it works, and that's how the meanings also complement each other or work together. Say, have you ever considered whether God should cause me and those with me to perish, or instead show us mercy? Who could protect the disbelievers from a painful torment? Say, He is the compassionate one. We have believed and placed our trust in Him, so you will soon come to know who is in clear misguidance. Or, so they will soon come to know. This is the other qira'ah. Again, both authentic readings. So they will soon come to know who is in clear misguidance. Here, the quote mark has to move also, the subtle thing. So you will soon come to know, this is part of the same statement that's being made to them. Otherwise, we have to see end quote, so they will soon come to know who is in clear misguidance. So this goes back to the context that people have been wishing for and plotting for harm caused to the Prophet ﷺ. They have been plotting to kill him. They wish that he would go away from them and they would be done with the hardship that he's causing them as they are trying to cling on to their shirk and their control in the dunya. So Allah tells him to tell them, have you ever considered, maybe Allah would take my life and all my followers as well would disappear from here. But how is that going to help you when you have earned this punishment upon yourself? You need us to be here to remind you so that you come back. Getting rid of us will not solve your problems. Whether God should cause me and those with me to perish, or instead show us mercy by extending our lives as He wills. In either case, who could protect the disbelievers from a painful torment they earned by their own actions? And then the next ayah, you can see here how it connects beautifully. Say, we may expect that mercy and protection because He is the compassionate one. We have believed and placed our trust in Him, unlike you, idolaters. So you will soon come to know or they will soon come to know, through events that unfold, who between us and you, or who between the two groups, is in clear misguidance. And finally, this was an ayah that just now I was reciting. I arrived in Mecca a couple of days before coming here. And I kept reciting this ayah, especially, we would go to Zamzam, drink from Zamzam. And this is a great ni'mah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding them of what they have in the dunya, the ni'mah that they are in. Here in Doha, the ni'mah that you are in. There are natural resources that Allah gave to some people and gave to other people and withheld some things from other people. The water, or whether it be oil and gas, whatever it may be, the ni'am that you are able to build so much good out of. You have to be grateful for these things. Because if Allah should cause those things to go away from you, who are you going to go to after Allah? This has been established in the surah. You have no one, you have no army that can bring you something that Allah doesn't want you to have. Either as a test, or as a blessing, or as both things, because these are the same in reality. Allah is giving you blessings, and you are now tested. لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Who will do the best out of what Allah has given them? When you have been given resources, collectively as a society and a country, individually as each one of us is given talents and given opportunities and powers and knowledge, and we are going to be asked about how we use them. What if Allah took that away from you? Who could replace it? How are you going to show gratitude? You will show gratitude by using it in the service of Allah and those things that He loves. Say, have you ever considered the wells God has granted you in Mecca? If your water were to sink beyond reach, then who besides God could bring you flowing, accessible water? Here, Al-Imam Al-Alusi says, it's like they are being told, if you will not worship Him for His own sake, and if you will not worship Him out of gratitude for blessings, and if you will not worship Him out of fear of the hellfire, then worship Him for the things of your dunya. At the very least, this is the lowest level of reason. This is the lowest level of aql. At least to preserve what you have in this life, that you should be grateful to Allah and you should turn to Him and worship Him. لِإِيلَافِ قُرَيْشٍ إِيلَافِهِمْ رِحْلَةَ الشِّتَاءِ وَالصَّيْفِ فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ. One way of reading this is, by the very fact that they have this security and they're able to move around in the land and they're able to trade and to build their civilization, then for this reason they should worship the Lord of this house, who has fed them and saved them from hunger, and who has given them aman, security. What a great blessing also it is, as I was reminded when I came here, the security of, the ni'mah of security, being able to move around safely, being able to leave your bag somewhere and not worry that someone will steal it. How are we going to show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we benefited from these blessings? We didn't just enjoy them and feel good about them, but we use them in a way that is pleasing to Him. This is where I will conclude my presentation. And inshallah, if we have a chance for some questions, if there's still some time, then we will engage with those. This is to let you know that we have an ongoing project, this translation. I'm sharing with you as it's going. I could have waited till it's finished, 3, 5, 10 years, Allah knows best, but we have a time scale. We could finish it and then start talking about it. But I like to go out in the world and share what we're doing to benefit from your feedback, your thoughts, also participation and support. We have a community on Patreon. If you don't know Patreon, it's like a creator support project, like a platform where people can support those who are creating content of various kinds. So we have a page where we're sharing previews of the translation as it's developing. We have some sessions where we meet with the patrons and go through, for example, Surat Al-Baqarah, which we completed now, but we are still going through the reading of Surat Al-Baqarah and seeing what the translation is bringing to light, like we did here with Sūrat Al-Mulk. And we have a course which you can try it as well on Surat Yasin, because we did complete also Surat Yasin. We made a PDF of it that's available for free. You just go to this link, ibnashur.com/Yasin, and you can put in an email to get the PDF of the Yasin translation, and also perhaps to do the course that's there. So please do join in, support, share your feedback, positive, negative, anything that you can share with us is useful to us to think about how we use this to serve the community. Barakallahu feekum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.